The Scottish Government leader has delivered a scathing assessment of the British Prime Minister's hardline approach to Brexit, deepening the spat between them. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon's attack on Boris Johnson comes just days after their frosty meeting in Edinburgh. Let's go live now to Westminster and to correspondent Shadia Edwards-Dashti for more. Hi there, Shadia. Looking tougher for Boris Johnson's desire, isn't it, to unite the UK behind his Brexit position? He's finding no favours north of the border here.
Well, indeed, exactly. The First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, has finally lifted the lid on her relationship with the Prime Minister Boris Johnson after a somewhat frosty face-to-face encounter at her official residence in Edinburgh last week. As we know, the two don't exactly see eye to eye politically, but particularly on the issue of Brexit. Nicola Sturgeon believes that his stance, his exit vision, is somewhat delusional.
Matters of ongoing discussion.
There is a line between optimism and delusion, and selling something that is not true. That's where the Brexit argument has made the mistake, and Boris Johnson in particular. He shrugs his shoulders quite literally when you talk to him about the consequences of crashing out at the end of October with no deal, as if they don't matter or he can wish them away.
Well, Boris Johnson visited Scotland in his first week as becoming the next Prime Minister, and it was part of a devolved tour of all the different nations. And what he found was he was immediately booed upon arrival. And in that meeting, Scotland had re-energised and renewed calls for a second independence referendum, particularly in the case of a no-deal Brexit scenario. Plus, we've just found out, according to a shock new poll, what it's found is that just days after Boris Johnson visited the region, the majority of the Scottish population are now in favour of voting for independence at a whopping 52%. It comes as a significant blow to Boris Johnson's attempt to keep the union together, but his do-or-die approach to leaving the European Union, come what may, on October the 31st is seen as a very toxic position for those in Scotland, particularly given the fact that they voted to remain in the EU in the 2016 referendum. So Nicola Sturgeon is now coming out to say that she will fight for Scotland not to be dragged down this path of a no-deal Brexit scenario. But her attacks are not just at Boris Johnson. They've also been hitting out at the former Prime Minister, Theresa May. She was describing the conversations with Theresa May as soul-destroying. Quite harsh words there, saying that Theresa May was particularly awkward, even in those somewhat light-hearted moments, because she never really came off script, her pre-prepared scripts. All of this comes as the European Union is now a step closer to accepting that the UK could crash out of the European Union without a deal. And they are saying that they will no longer be holding any further Brexit talks with Britain if this stalemate position over the backstop continues. As we know, Brussels say that what the UK wants is unacceptable, whereas Downing Street are still saying that they are going to try and change and scrap the backstop. So what we can see is just a few weeks away till this October deadline, it seems like Britain has gone full circle and right back to where we began 3 years ago.